I never liked the sound of midnight phones. They tremble through the walls like warnings. That night mine buzzed on the nightstand, flashing a number from the county hospital. I answered with a knot in my throat and learned my wife, Dana, had been an offender bender on the parkway. Airbag deployed. A few bruises, nothing life-threatening. I exhaled, woke our neighbor to watch the kids, grabbed a jacket, and drove across town with that frantic, rubbery feeling in my hands that makes every red light feel personal. The ER was a bright maze. Antiseptic, kind but rushed nurses, beeping machines. I found Dana on a gurney, cheeks freckled with powder from the airbag. She gave me a trembly smile and squeezed my fingers. I kissed her knuckles, tried a joke I don't remember, and listened to the doctor deliver routine advice. They'd run tests, keep her for observation, then probably discharge her by morning. I told the doctor I'd sit right there with her, then stepped out to call our neighbor again with an update. When I came back, a resident was entering notes in a tablet while a lab tech compared barcodes on vials. The minor chaos felt normal, until the resident paused, rechecked Dana's wristband, and frowned. He looked at her, then at me. "We got back some routine blood work," he said, voice steady, the way professionals train it to be. "And there's a discrepancy in the records. It could be a clerical mistake. We'll rerun." He asked a few questions about her medical history, nothing unusual, but when he mentioned a blood type that didn't match what Dana had on file from a previous visit, he hesitated again. "Not a huge deal," he assured us. "These things happen." I tried to let it go. People switch databases, labels get swapped, but the word discrepancy is sticky. It clings. On the drive home at dawn, with Dana dozing beside me and the sky turning that watery blue, a thought stretched awake in my mind. Our oldest, Josh, had needed a small procedure as a toddler, and the nurse had chatted about his rare blood type. Harmless trivia back then. Now the memory returned with a new edge. After I settled Dana on the couch with ice packs and a soft blanket, I dug through the file box in the hall closet where we keep tax forms, report cards, warranties we never use. Tucked between immunization records and school field trip slips were the hospital pamphlets from each kid's birth, and in one of them, a card noting blood types. I studied the letters like they were a code, and the code unlocked something awful. Mine is O positive. I've known that since high school when a biology teacher pinned a sticker to my hoodie after a campus blood drive. The card for Josh had a combination that didn't add up. Then I checked Mia's, then little Ben's. I Googled for a chart, checked again and again as if repetition could bend math. I heard Dana shift on the couch. I slid the papers back into the folder and stood staring at the living room window where morning light crawled up the blinds. Maybe I'd mixed up cards. Maybe the nurse back then had been mistaken. Maybe I was losing my mind from lack of sleep. I brewed coffee I didn't want and burned my tongue, sipping it too fast. Later, when she woke, I stuck to caution. I asked whether the hospital had called again, whether she felt okay. She talked about stiffness, about a headache, about the neighbor's homemade muffins. I said I'd take the kids to school and she should rest. While the car idled in the driveway, I watched Josh and Mia bicker over who stole whose headphones, and I tried to see them the way strangers might. Their features, their mannerisms, the way Ben sucked 2 fingers when he was tired. All the little bits I loved felt both familiar and suddenly fragile, like a picture frame I was afraid to touch in case the glass fell out. At work I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on the screen. Emails went unanswered. I kept returning to the same web page, the one with the blood type chart, as if the boxes might reshuffle and give me new answers if I stared long enough. Around noon, I closed my office door and made a call I never imagined making. A discreet, reputable lab was across town. Paternity testing, they said, could be done without drama. Swabs, paperwork, results in a few days. "Do people bring in their kids without telling their spouses?" I asked, voice wooden. "All the time," the receptionist said in a voice so ordinary it made me dizzy. After school pickup, I invented an errand that ended at that beige lobby with piped-in music. The technician was gentle with the kids, turning the swabs into a silly game. "Say marshmallow," she told Ben, and he laughed with his mouth wide open. The whole thing was over in minutes. I felt like a thief on the way home, guilty of stealing something I wasn't sure I wanted. Days later, a white envelope appeared in the mailbox with my name typed cleanly across it. I held it for a long time on the kitchen island, listening to the washing machine thump through a spin cycle. Dana was upstairs helping Mia with a science worksheet. I slid a knife under the flap and unfolded the report. There were percentages, margins of error, cautious phrasing. Then there were bold lines that didn't need interpretation. I read them until the words were only shapes. The house sounded different after that. The refrigerator hummed like a distant freeway. A clock clicked in the hall I hadn't noticed before. Through all of it, I could hear my own breathing, steady but strange, like I'd borrowed someone else's lungs. I won't pretend I was heroic or wise. I was hurt. I paced the yard, stared at the fence, tried to retrace years from date nights to diaper changes. I asked how long, who, when, why, then circled back to the beginning and started again. I thought about packing a bag. I thought about calling a lawyer. I thought about baking brownies because that's what I do when I'm terrified. It fills the kitchen with a simple smell that pretends life is normal. Instead, I walked up the stairs and found Dana folding laundry on our bed. She smiled at me, all soft and ordinary, and for a full minute I couldn't speak. "Do you remember your blood type?" I asked finally, too casually. She paused, a t-shirt in mid-fold, and laughed a little. "A negative? No, wait, a positive." She shrugged. "Why?" I watched her face the way I watch a magician's hands. "Hospital asked," I said. That was true. I left the room before she could see the rest of my questions crawling across my forehead. That night, I slept on the edge of the mattress and dreamed of blank birth certificates. In the morning, I drove to the lab again, this time alone. I asked for printed copies, not just digital. When the receptionist passed the packet under the window, I felt a sharp, cold clarity slip into place. I can't describe it better than that. A click. Like fitting the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle you never wanted. I wasn't plotting a spectacle for revenge. I wanted the truth to stand in daylight where it couldn't shapeshift. The idea of a family dinner arrived as I watched Ben smear peanut butter on the counter with his spoon. Dinner is safe. Dinner is ordinary. People tell the truth at tables without meaning to. I could anchor myself to that routine. So I planned. I picked a Saturday. We'd invite Dana's parents, my brother, our neighbor who'd saved us a dozen times when the babysitter canceled. I told them it was to celebrate Dana feeling better after the accident. I ordered takeout from the Italian place we all love, the one with the garlic knots the kids fight over. I cleaned the house with an energy that bordered on manic, organized the junk drawer, polished the dull silver platter we never use. In a manila folder on my desk drawer, I tucked the lab printouts. 3 for the children and 1 for me. Each sheet crisp, each page clipped to a place card with a name written in my neatest handwriting. On Thursday, I found Dana scrolling recipes on her tablet, humming. "You're going big for this dinner," she teased. "I like it." I kissed her forehead, and the motion felt like muscle memory from a life I'd lived in another town. "It'll be good to have everyone together," I said. I meant it, even with the storm I'd set in motion, maybe especially because of it. I rehearsed how I'd speak, not with shouting, not with insults. A calm voice, the way a teacher leads a difficult class. I wrote sentences on a notepad and crossed them out. "I don't want to humiliate you, I want honesty. We can't build a future on fog." Even as I wrote, I didn't know what future meant anymore. I only knew that truth, once printed in black ink, tended to sit stubbornly on the table until someone dealt with it. Friday afternoon, I drove to the party store for extra chairs. At a stoplight, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror and hardly recognized the man staring back. He looked older, a decade older, jaw tight, eyes red from all the late nights. Yet beneath that, I recognized something steadier too. A guardrail had gone up inside me where there hadn't been one before. The day arrived bright and ordinary. Dana placed flowers in a jar, fussed with napkins, teased me about straightening picture frames that were already straight. Our kids chased each other in socks across the freshly mopped floor. If the house could speak, it would have said, "Nothing is wrong here. A good house lies for you like that sometimes." Guests arrived with wine and jokes. My brother handed me a ridiculous balloon because he knows embarrassing me is a love language. We ate garlic knots and laughed about my father's obsession with discount coupons. The kids retold the same story, about a seagull stealing a French fry from Mia's hand last summer, and somehow it was still funny. I waited for the right moment. It came when plates were cleared and dessert was on the horizon. I stood and felt every eye turn, all warmth and ease and expectation. My heart pounded in the same rhythm as the washing machine had days earlier. I thanked everyone for coming. I said the accident had shaken me, had made me think about how suddenly life can change, how valuable honesty is, how strong families get that way. No one disagreed. Heads nodded. Dana watched me, curious, hands folded on the tablecloth. Then I reached into the drawer of the sideboard and pulled out the manila folder. I placed 4 clipped stacks of paper gently in the middle of the table, like they were a game we were about to play. "I've printed something," I said, voice steady in the quiet that had fallen. "I need us to look at it together." I slid a set to Dana first, then one each toward the spots where Josh and Mia sat, and a smaller one for Ben that I rested beside his milk cup. I placed my own copy last, aligning its corners with the grain of the wood. Around us, forks stilled. The neighbor's laugh died on her lips. My brother's eyebrows rose, but he kept quiet. Dana reached for her stack, confusion touching the corner of her mouth like a shadow of an expression she didn't quite recognize. I breathed in, breathed out, and felt the ground beneath the table tilt, just a fraction, just enough to tell me the next words would change the room forever. "Before anyone reads," I said, "I want you to know I'm not doing this to hurt anyone. I'm doing it because the truth matters, and the accident made me realize we can't keep living with questions." I tapped the paper softly. "This is about those questions." The room held still, waiting to exhale. Dana opened her packet. Her eyes scanned the top line, then the second, and then she froze. A hush fell so complete you could hear the neighbor's clock in the hallway tick, tick, tick. The kids waited, uncertain but trusting, still wrapped in the safe blanket of a family dinner that had always been good. I felt the moment stretch like a wire just before it snaps, and I knew there was no stepping back from what I'd set in motion. Dana's hand trembled. As she held the papers, the color drained from her face so quickly it seemed the air itself had been pulled out of the room. For a second, nobody moved. Even the children sensed something heavy had shifted. Josh stopped fidgeting. Mia looked between us. And little Ben, too young to read tension but sharp enough to feel it, clutched his cup closer. "Dana," I said quietly, "do you want to explain this?" She blinked rapidly, her lips parting without sound. The words on the page, those printed percentages and clinical terms, stared back at her like a mirror she didn't want to look into. What is this?" she finally managed. Her voice cracked halfway through the question. "They're DNA results," I replied, keeping my tone calm, careful. "From a certified lab. They confirm that I'm not biologically related to any of the kids." My brother exhaled, a low whistle he tried to smother into his hand. My neighbor reached for her glass, eyes wide. The hum of the refrigerator became the loudest sound in the room. Dana looked at me, then at the children, then back. "You're wrong," she said quickly, shaking her head. "That can't be right. Maybe they made a mistake." "I thought of that," I said. "That's why I had the tests redone at another lab. The results matched." Her hands dropped the papers as if they burned. "You tested our kids behind my back?" she said, her tone rising. "Yes," I admitted. "After the hospital said your blood type didn't match what was on your records, I started connecting things. I needed the truth, Dana." Her breath came out in sharp bursts. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." "I didn't bring this up to humiliate you," I said firmly. "I brought it up because our entire life has been built on something that isn't real, and I can't pretend anymore." The kids sat frozen. Josh, the oldest, broke the silence with a soft, fearful whisper. "Mom? What's going on?" Dana turned toward him, tears finally escaping. "Nothing, sweetheart. It's a mistake. Your dad's just confused." I felt the sting of that word, Dad, and how suddenly it didn't fit anymore. "They deserve to know the truth," I said. Her eyes hardened. "Not like this," she snapped. "Not at this table." "Then when?" I asked. "After another year? After they're grown and wondering why their father looks at them differently?" My brother stood slowly. "Maybe we should give you both some space," he said gently, guiding everyone toward the living room. The room emptied except for the two of us and the silent stare of 3 children who didn't understand what had just shattered. When the door closed behind the guests, Dana collapsed into the nearest chair. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she whispered. "What wasn't?" Her fingers twisted the hem of her blouse. She didn't look up. "I didn't plan any of it. The first time, I thought it was a mistake, one terrible night. Then I convinced myself it wouldn't happen again." I felt something hollow open inside me. "So, it did happen again?" She nodded faintly. "And again." I leaned against the table, gripping the edge to steady myself. "Do I even want to know who?" "It doesn't matter now," she said. "It matters to me," I said. "It matters to the last 15 years of my life." She closed her eyes. "He was someone I worked with. It was never supposed to mean anything. You were always the one I wanted to come home to." The words twisted in my chest like a knife. "You say that like it's supposed to make me feel better." She wiped her face, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I was scared you'd leave if you knew. You've always been so steady, so sure of everything. I didn't want to destroy that." "You already did," I said quietly. She looked up at me then, and for a fleeting second I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with years ago. The laugh, the warmth, the spark. But it was buried now under guilt and lies. "What do we do now?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I can't stay in this house tonight." The kids were still in the living room, huddled on the couch with my brother, who was trying to distract them with a movie they weren't watching. I kissed each of their foreheads before leaving. They didn't understand why I was crying. I didn't understand either. Outside, the night was cool and quiet, the kind that feels heavier after a storm. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the glow of the porch light. The house looked peaceful from the outside. No one could guess what had just been ripped apart inside. I drove with no destination, ended up in a diner I used to visit in college. I ordered coffee, didn't touch it. My mind played back every family photo, every school play, every Christmas morning. I realized I'd never once doubted that they were mine. That kind of faith isn't taught. It's instinct. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, asked if I wanted a refill. I shook my head and muttered something about thinking too much. She smiled. "That's what coffee's for, honey." I managed a faint laugh. Maybe she was right. When I finally drove home at dawn, I didn't go inside. I sat in the driveway and watched the lights come on in the kitchen. Dana's silhouette moved behind the curtain, pouring cereal, tying Ben's shoes, pretending the world was still spinning the same way. I realized something then. It wasn't just betrayal that hurt. It was how normal everything still looked, how easily lies can hide inside ordinary mornings. I started the car again and drove away, not knowing where I was headed, only that I couldn't go back. Not yet. I didn't go home for a week. I stayed in a motel by the highway, the kind where the curtains never quite close, and the vending machine hums through the night. Every morning, I'd check my phone. No missed calls, just texts from Dana that I couldn't bring myself to open. On the 7th day, I drove back. The house looked smaller, like it was trying to hide. The kids were at school. Dana was sitting on the porch, eyes red but calm. "We need to talk," she said. Inside, the table was still there, clean now, but I could almost see the papers spread across it. "I talked to a lawyer," she began softly. "He said the kids' custody doesn't change because of biology. You've raised them their whole lives." "I know," I said.
Moving pallets with the forklift. Normally, I don't even check my phone when I'm working, but this time it wouldn't stop ringing.
"Then maybe we can—"
When I finally
"No,"
pulled it out of my
I
pocket,
interrupted gently.
I saw an unknown
"Not
number.
us.
Something
Just
told
them.
me to answer, and the second I
didn't
put
do
it to
this.
my ear, my
Her
entire
lip
world
trembled,
tilted.
but she didn't argue.
"Sir,
"You're right."
this is Officer Daniels.
I took a deep breath.
You need to come home immediately."
"They'll always be my kids.
My heart nearly
DNA
stopped.
doesn't erase years of bedtime
Is something
stories
wrong?
or scraped knees.
What happened?
But I can't
My
stay
wife?
married to someone who
My
built
kids?
a life on lies."
Please tell me what's going
Tears
on.
slid down her cheeks.
The officer's tone was
I
urgent
understand.
but restrained.
There was
Your wife's
silence.
boyfriend is in your daughter's
Strangely
room.
peaceful.
I can't say more
Not
over the
angry
phone,
anymore.
but you'll see for
Just
yourself.
empty, like both
Please
of us had
hurry.
run out of fight.
Boyfriend.
We agreed to co-parent.
Daughter's room.
I'd move into
I
an
swear
apartment
time
nearby.
slowed down.
The kids
My
would
chest
visit
felt
me
like
on
someone had
weekends.
shoved a
I
block
told
of
them
ice
nothing
into it,
about the tests,
and for a second
just
I
that
couldn't
Mom and
breathe.
Dad needed time apart.
My wife
They
had
cried,
a
of course,
boyfriend,
but children
and
have
he
a way
was
of
in my
believing
daughter's room?
tomorrow.
The
Months
words
passed.
didn't even make sense
Life
together,
rearranged
but my
itself.
instincts screamed
The
at me
pain
that I
dulled,
couldn't waste another
replaced by
second.
something steadier.
I dropped everything.
Acceptance.
Didn't even bother
I found
telling my
comfort in
supervisor
routine
I was
again.
leaving.
Coaching
I
Ben's
just threw
soccer,
off my gloves,
helping Mia
bolted
with her
out
art
of the
project,
warehouse, and
watching
jumped into my
Josh learn
truck.
to drive.
My hands were
They were
trembling
still
so
mine
badly that I
in all
almost
the
dropped
ways
the
that
keys.
mattered.
And when I finally
One
jammed them
evening,
into the
as I
ignition,
tucked Ben into bed,
I
he
floored
asked,
it out of the parking lot
"Dad,
like a madman.
Are you and Mom still
Every
friends?"
red light felt like a
I
curse.
smiled.
Every
brushing
slow
his hair
driver in
back.
front of me was the enemy.
We're trying to be.
My mind spun with
He thought
images
about
I
it,
couldn't control.
then nodded.
My daughter crying,
That's
some
good.
stranger in her room,
You're both
my
happier
wife
now.
standing by doing nothing,
It hit me then.
or worse,
He was right.
encouraging it.
The truth had broken everything.
The rage
but it had
inside me
also
built with
cleared the
every
fog.
passing second
No
until
more
it was
pretending.
boiling over.
No more secrets.
When I turned onto my street,
Driving
my
home
stomach
later,
dropped.
I passed the diner
My
where
house
I'd
wasn't
sat
just
that
lit up.
first night.
It was
The
surrounded.
neon sign
There were
buzzed
3
the same
squad
dull
cars
red.
parked outside,
But this
their
time I
red and
didn't
blue
feel
lights
lost.
flickering across
I
the
felt
front
free.
lawn. Neighbors were
Sometimes
already gathering
revenge
on their
isn't about
porches,
destruction.
whispering,
It's
staring,
about walking
waiting for the
away.
drama to unfold.
With your peace intact
I slammed
while
my
the truth
truck
does
into
its own
park,
quiet work.
barely remembering
And
to
in
kill
that
the engine
silence,
before I
finally
jumped out.
found mine.
My boots hit the pavement hard as I sprinted toward the